Hey everyone, it's Dina again. So I've had a couple of questions about if you can import a PDF that is a printable type into your software and do a print and cut, and that's totally doable. So today I'm going to show you how to set up your page, put your registration marks in, trace it, and kind of get everything prepared and set to print and then cut and kind of get that ball rolling. So let's get started. The first thing that we are going to do is use the page setup panel, and what you want to do is set your size to letter, which gives you the 8.5 by 11, and then you can choose the orientation, portrait or landscape, your choice there, and it also depends on the printable and whether that's portrait or landscape. And because you're going to be using a cutting mat, I have that set to the 12 by 12 Cameo. And you want to make sure that you have your show cut border selected. Okay, this is going to come in handy when you put your registration marks on the page. And the next thing that we're going to do is import a PDF into the software. And you want to do that by going up to File, Open, or just use off that menu the little folder icon right here to open. And then you find your location of the file and you can double click that to open it up. And when that is ready to import, it gives you two options for the PDF import. And by the way, you do have to have a certain software version to be able to import a PDF, and I believe it's the designer edition. And the two options here are import as vector or import as image, and you want to choose the one that says import as image. And then it gives you the dots per inch or the DPI option, and it's recommended at 300. Most printers are going to have that capability. You can choose higher, but I usually use 300. And then click the import button in the bottom right corner. And then it's going to work, and it's going to pull that image onto your workspace. So just be patient and let it do its thing. There we go. So now you can see the printable file that's been created, and by the way, this is available on the website here at imacookie-baker.com if you're interested in that. And the next thing that we want to do is set our registration marks, and we're going to go back into our page setup, and we're going to use the far right icon at the top for our registration marks. And by default, mine are set to off, and yours are probably too. Click on the drop-down menu for style and choose Type 1. And then it shows you the available options for your registration marks. And this is why it's important to show your cut lines or your cut border, because you can see over here, and let me just zoom in. And I'm using the Alt button and the scroller wheel on my mouse to do that. You can see that my design is outside of this red border. So if I were to print this, it would probably print okay, but if I were to cut it, I'm going to cut off part of my design. Okay. The other issue is my design is now up in these hash marks, and we definitely don't want them touching it or inside of that area. So this is where you can determine how thick that you want them. Do you want to inset them? And so on. Okay, so now you can see that without resizing my file, I have my design within, and don't even worry about this down here because you're not going to use that, within my cut border, within my hash marks, and then again, you may need to fiddle with the size here or the length of these. Sometimes the smaller you go, the harder it is for the machine to recognize those registration marks. So don't be afraid to resize your image to fit for what's going to work best for you, okay? Because what works for me may not exactly work for you, and vice versa. So just fiddle with it, find what works, and then stick with that. And write it down if you have to. Okay, so those are my tips of the day. I'm gonna pull these back down just a little bit. Now, the next thing that we want to do is trace our design so that we get our cut lines. And you're going to do that by opening up the trace panel. Looks like a little piece of toast, but it's actually a butterfly, I believe. And we're going to select our trace area, so just draw a box around it. And then increase your threshold so that you get the yellow. And don't worry if it doesn't fill in all of these areas, because that's really not what we're doing. We're not cutting the insides of these out. We want to put a trace line on the outer edge. So once you get your yellow setting set, move down to the bottom and choose Trace Outer Edge. And it doesn't look like it did anything, but it actually did. And you can check the cut lines by going to the Send menu in the far upper right corner. And you can see the bold red line around the design. That is your cut line. Okay? Now, if you wanted a bleed area, let's say you wanted a little bit of white around that, you could put an offset on it, but it's not truly necessary unless that's the design style that you're going for. We're going to say that this works for us today. At this point, what we would do is we would choose our material type, our action of cut, select the appropriate tool. I don't really use the auto blade anymore just because I find that it has been too unreliable. So I stick with the ratchet blade. If you don't change that and you're using the ratchet blade, then it's going to try to change the depth of that automatically, and you don't really want that to happen. So just double check that you have the correct tool selected. Double check your settings here that you have selected. If you're using the ratchet blade, manually change your blade depth, and then once you're ready to do that, then you can send it to print. Okay, and you can actually do that right from this screen. So once you've printed it, you place it on your mat in exactly the position that you see here on the screen. Start in the upper left corner, place it on there like so, load the mat into the cutter, and then click send. And then your machine is going to read these registration marks, and it should begin cutting out your tags. Not too bad, right? If I can have a machine do something for me and save me a little bit of time, even though I've set it up like this, it took a little bit of time and some steps to do that. I don't have to fiddle with scissors and worry about cutting into the design all crooked and things of that nature. So I'm all for that. 2 thumbs up. If you guys have any questions about this, if you run into any issues, feel free to leave a comment. I'm more than happy to help out. And I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, feel free to subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for watching.